On the microphones, pure and uncensored American straight talk. Never quit. You're locked and loaded with Chris Peranto and Ian Scotto. This is the Battleline podcast.
Which is on, motherfucker, I'm going to shoot you in the face.
The switch is on, Battleline podcast, and we have a really big guest on today, Jack Carr. Really excited for it. I met Jack, I don't know if it's been like a year or 2 years. It's been a couple of years, but now he's on his third book. He's doing big things, and I'm excited to talk to him, man, and that'll be in just a little bit.
Yeah, I just like to hear from him. I haven't followed, and I'll be completely honest, man, I haven't followed Jack's career as far as like some people have. But being, and I want to say, correct me if I'm wrong, brother. And I know I feel like you jackass, you don't know Navy SEAL. I forget which team he was on, though. That's the damn thing.
I believe he's been in several. I believe he's been in several teams at some point. Which we could get into with him.
We'll ask.
And that is a common thing, right? To serve in several SEAL teams.
When you're in a team, when you're in a SEAL team, you could jump around. Well, it's common either just to stick at one, because we talk about the nomenclatures, the colors. You've got blue, which is DevGru, green, Delta, red, Rangers, and then you've got we call them the vanilla. It's a term of endearment. Sometimes the other SEAL teams take it as a derogatory term. I don't see it that way. But we call them the white soft, or we call them the vanilla teams, and that's all the other ones, the white soft teams. And that's all the other SEAL teams except SEAL Team 6. But what I'm getting at is that, sometimes they'll stick on one team, and a lot of time those white soft teams are high speed. I worked with one guy that was on one, Mike Haynes. He was also a GRS team leader. The dude could have been on blue, easy could have been on blue, and he didn't want to. And he was tremendous. And he stayed on pretty much one team his whole career. But then you do have guys that jump around just because they want to go to different coasts, and you can do that in the teams. But Jack would know more than I would, being he was the SEAL and I was with the 75th. But yeah. Right. And either way though, but they would be able to tell you which teams are better, which teams do what specializes here, there. But bottom line is that if he was in the teams, regardless if he jumped around, he was still a SEAL, and he was top notch.
Yeah, I believe he did, just from, it's been so long since I last spoke to him and saw him in person. But if I remember correctly, that's the case. I'm sure he'll let us know. But nonetheless, 20-year career serving in Iraq, Afghanistan, the Philippines, several different positions of leadership. So
Jack is continually writing, but you'll get to hear from him, not from me. He'll tell you all the books that he's done, and a lot of you already know. A lot of our listeners are avid Jack Carr readers.
Absolutely. And he's not in the category of the many guys, including yourself, who have done autobiographies. His stuff is all fictional.
Yeah, I think about that now. And like, man, I come back to the fact that we are a lot cooler. I mean, we aren't as cool as we think we are. A lot of people think, oh, you're always getting in there, you're always doing such cool shit. No, to be honest with you, 80% of the time we're playing Call of Duty, waiting for something to happen. And then there's no guy will tell you any different. If they are, they're full of shit. But the thing is, with that 20% of the time when you are getting after it, you're really getting after it. It's quite exciting or dangerous or whatever. But it gives you the chance to have that experience when you're sitting there. You're able to think about what could happen, what ifing, wargaming it, and be able to put it in a book. And that's because he writes fiction, but it's still military CIA. It's the spook stuff. It's all the secret squirrel stuff related. You have that mentality because you can put some truth into it because you've done it, but then you can also add the fiction of like the Jason Bourne stuff, because you're like, man, what if we really could do that Captain America bullshit that we saw in the movies? And I think a lot of veterans that were in special operations or did missions with the agency or the NSA, honestly, they have such a tremendous. First of all, most operators are extremely smart. They follow that stereotype of what people say. You're a knuckle dragger. No, they're extremely smart. Except for me. Other than that, but they have the talent to really get things out there, to make it interesting, to make it exciting, and they also have the real world experience that you can put some truth in there, which honestly I think adds credibility to any book, and people dig that. And Jack, of course, has found it. We also had a help me out, brother,
AJ
General
Tata,
Tata.
General AJ
Yeah,
Tata, yeah.
General. It's another one who does fiction, but can put some truth in there because he's been around it. He's been part of it. He's been in other countries, and I think it really translates well to a fiction secret squirrel, bending bullets, Jason Bourne type books because it does. They know it, so they know how far they can push it to. It's just completely ridiculous. We're okay. I'm done reading this stupid shit. To where hey, this is actually, it could happen, and maybe it did happen, but we're saying it's a fiction book. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that's one of the interesting things too. Is I'm sure we're gonna get Brad Thor on at some time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the way that we know, or I know Jack really is through the connection with Brad Thor and the team at Simon and Schuster. We've had Brad Thor on the previous show I was on, and they were saying you got to get Jack Carr in studio. And what I know about Brad Thor, much like me, is a guy who didn't serve but has that connection in this community, and he'll tell you himself when he writes a book. He'll call Jack Carr, he'll call Marcus Luttrell, and he'll say, "Does this sound realistic?
Does this sound realistic?
Did I get the lingo wrong? All that type of stuff."
Yeah, and that's it right there. That's perfect. I mean, you basically said in a nutshell what took me 5 minutes to say. So perfect. There you go, man. And Simon and Schuster, they do get a lot of the military fiction. I'm with a different publisher. They're one of their major competitors in Grand Central Publishing, and they have, honestly, we need to. I need to throw some, because we've had a lot of Simon and Schuster authors on. I got to get with Grand Central, get over there with Kate, and get us some military authors from Hachette and over on the show, because they've got some tremendous authors as well in the same genres, same stuff and they're a tremendous publishing company. So we need to do that, because I feel bad, because we've had a lot of Simon and Schuster writers, and we need to get some Hachette writers on there, because I think they've got some good storytellers too over there. And so I don't know. That's something to think about. I guess we'll have to spitball that maybe for July. See what I can do on that.
It's one of those funny things, because it's even now with 2 shows a week, there's so many people we want on. There's no shortage of people. I know that people still want to hear the guys who you talked about in your last book. People still want to hear some of the other people involved in Benghazi on the show, other than Tig. And there's no shortage of great people to get on the show. And I think, we're doing our best in getting some interesting people. And this month is going to be stacked. Oh, you know what I wanted to get to was, so 2 episodes ago, I didn't get to it last episode. There was all that speculation over Kim Jong-un. Is he alive? Is he dead? And it turns out that the reports were wrong. It looks like Kim Jong-un is alive and well, and says he was avoiding public appearances because of coronavirus. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, well, if he's alive, with me, brother, you're like, if he's alive, he's alive. If he's dead, he's dead. Sorry if that offends people.
Did you see the Trump tweet about it?
No, I did. The only time I find out about that shit is when you tell me on the show. I did.
Trump wrote, he was like, "I, for one, am glad to see him alive and well." And it's kind of weird to go from, he was the one calling him Rocket Man and Little Rocket Man, and to now being on good terms with the guy, glad to see him alive. It's strange.
Is that what the tweet was, though? Because Trump can be a condescending motherfucker, dude. Maybe it was. He's like,
but he also gave that speech where he said, "I fell in love with him." I don't know if you remember that speech.
You know what? I don't. Guys out there, right here,
you're like,
I'm telling you, it's like shit. I like politics. I give 2 shits about politics. Just make sure the economy's going. Stop with the hibbity bibbity virus bullshit. Get the figures right. Make sure there's TP. I'm good, dude. That's all I care.
Because I want to at least make sure I'm accurately quoting the tweet.
Yeah.
It's pretty much exactly what I said. He said, "I, for one, am glad to see he is back and well!" Exclamation point.
Well, I don't even know how to respond to that, because with the Kim Jong-un, I don't think he'd be saying the same thing to a United States politician or a president here for any means or general.
Him and Trump seem to be on very good terms, and but the question is, are they dismantling the nuclear program? And
Yeah,
if they're not, then who gives a shit about
yeah,
what terms they're on?
exactly. Well, I don't give a fuck if you guys love each other or not, dude. Are you not doing nuclear tests anymore? You're not going to have the nuclear bomb, or you're not moving forward to an Armageddon. What? Or if you're not, then okay, good. High five. Love each other to death. If you are still moving that way, Kim Jong Un, then yeah, I don't give two shits about you. To be honest with you, in fact, you know, I don't really care for you. So that's weird. Yeah, it is weird, man.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I really don't. I don't understand. I don't understand half of it. But politicians, I don't understand half politicians anymore. And Trump. I hate to say Trump's a politician because I do agree with Uncle Ted. I don't think he is a politician. He's not in the true form of grew up in politics. He's not. He's not at all. Which makes him, to be honest, it makes him to most people likable. That's why they like him. That's why I would like him, is because he's not a politician. I hate politicians. They're backhanded, backsliding, mealy mouthed, talking out of the back of their neck type people. I've been around them guys. I know it. I've been sitting in the bottom of the White House going through damn interviews and interrogations with select committees from anywhere from sitting down there with Elijah Cummings and Speaker Boehner to Devin Nunes and Adam Schiff, and it's just bullshit. Trey guy actually was the one that was quite honest with me. He's one I still, but again, we go back to he's not in politics anymore too. I think that says something right there. It's like, screw this. This is just backhanded, back deal, shady shit. So, getting back on Kim Jong Un, yeah, that goes back to if he's not dismantling his nuclear program, I don't give two shits about him. But he better still be on the shit list for the United States, because that dude's six. He's 6 bottles short of a 6-pack. Is that so? I don't know, bro.
Yeah.
And I don't know with Trump. Yeah, bro, you're gonna have to keep feeding me the information, because I don't know how to take.
No, I mean, there's
tweet.
nothing.
Really
It's
don't.
a tweet. There's nothing else to really say about it. I'm just quoting the tweet. Take it as it is.
Yeah.
I'm not even giving any spin on it. It's. I think anybody would tell you it's bizarre.
It is.
Yep.
That's where I'm at. I'm like stumped right now. I don't even know what to say on it. I've said a ton, and I've really said nothing about the tweet because I don't know what to say. It is completely bizarre.
Yeah, what was the other thing I wanted to mention before we get into stuff with Jack Carr, and not to be like self-absorbed, because I do always ask Chris, like, anything you want to get into, so I'll get into.
No, you do, because I talk all the time, dude. I take up 80% of the radio. No, go.
No, that's not true, man. I think we do a good job splitting things, but yeah, I spoke about it last show during the intro. I am getting back into the running thing and waking up every morning and trying to wake up earlier than I was. I was waking up super late and going for that run. And yeah, yesterday was 7 miles. Today was 5 miles, to be honest. I want to get back into that half marathon territory like I was in 2012, because quite honestly, with the whole switching up of routines here, I don't get that much enjoyment out of like lifting kettlebells by myself at my house, which is what I was doing. Going for a run by myself, I get a ton out of. So I was like, I'm going to switch over things, get some more running in, and hopefully, by maybe the end of the year or so, I'm back to running what is the equivalent of a half marathon, and maybe doing it again. The last time I did it, I said I'll never do another one of these, but maybe I will.
Dude, that's awesome. Running is spiritual. People don't believe it. They are. Working out the gym to me is something you do after you run, or it's just an add addition to running. Running is the main workout. Running is a mental game. Running, again, but it also allows you to clear your head when you're out there. Whether you're in the woods or you're in a city, regardless. Whether you run with headphones or you don't run with headphones, it allows your mind to think, and you're out there thinking. Your brain's working, your endorphins are kicking in, you feel good. So, man, awesome to you, dude. 7 miles, and 7 miles is no joke. I don't care what pace you're going on. 7 miles is a long way, and if you're doing 7 miles, dude, awesome. You could go run a half marathon right now by being able to complete 7 miles. You would suck through it, dude. Well, that's why I tell people when they're training for anything, you never, every once in a while you want to hit that distance that you're training for, but most of the times you want to stay below it, because you don't want to overdo it right at the beginning. You don't want to kill yourself. And when you become an avid runner, then you figure out your own paces. But brother, you're doing awesome. That's amazing.
Thanks, man. No, it's funny you say that, because the one time I did the half marathon, everybody was asking, how are you training for this? Like, what's your pace like with a half marathon? And I really had no idea. I mean, I was
Yeah.
running probably 5, 6 miles most of the time, and I
Yep.
figured I'll figure it out when I do it, and I did, and I kept a decent pace. I have it on record somewhere, but it was about average. For my first one, and averaging like my age
Yeah.
range for male, and I was happy with that. I'm not looking to break any records. I just thought it's just good to accomplish a goal. You got to constantly be accomplishing goals in life, as we say.
And some of those half marathons out there, like in the marathons and the half marathons, Oklahoma City is a tremendous one. The rock and roll marathon, they're fun. They make it fun. There's stuff on the side of the roads. There's sometimes the rock and roll marathon. There's bands along the whole way. The Oklahoma City one. If you've never ran in Oklahoma City, you wouldn't think it's as cool. It is. It's so cool. Oklahoma City has some of the most beautiful city areas to run in. Find those, and of course in the Walt Disney World one. I mean, running through the Magic Kingdom. So
Wow, there's a Walt Disney
yeah,
marathon.
yeah,
Wow.
marathon, dude.
Wait, have you done that?
The only I have just been at the end of it. Nope, I have never done it because I've been looking at it going, do I want to run this thing? No, I don't know, but I've seen
It
the
seems
course.
like
I
it
went
was
and
it
rocked
was
the course.
literally made for you.
I know, that's perfect.
That's your true
I'm gonna
passion.
do it. I saw the course, and the course looks awesome. I'm looking at the only downside. I try to do my due diligence on these things because some of the marathons are just like the Nebraska one here. They could make it a lot better, and the half marathon. But it's really the stuff they put on the side of the road that cheer you on that makes it fun, that makes it go. And the Walt Disney World one, yeah, I want to do. I just haven't had a chance to do it, but I have looked at the layout. I looked at the course. It's fantastic. Of course, running through the Magic Kingdom. The only thing the complaint is, and I look at the end of people that have ran it, is they don't give anything. It's like people are. I mean, it's Walt Disney World, and you want it. You expect something. They give me a Mickey Mouse doll or a shirt or something. They
Did you
just
get a
let you.
medal? Did you get like a little
No,
Disney
they just
medal?
let you. They just let you keep your number. You know, that little town. Like that's kind of messed up.
Yeah,
Come
I would
on.
think. I mean,
I know it's
they're such geniuses with merchandising. You'd think
yeah,
they'd have a cool little
yeah,
thing.
that cool like something they would give you for it, and they don't. But I will. I know I haven't run the wall, but that's on my bucket list to do that, and I will. I'll get it done here. And now that things have calmed down, my world this has been great. This whole break has been great for me because it prioritized again what is important in my life, and that's my family. So I am going to be cutting down a lot of the travel I used to do, a lot of the courses, the speaking events, doing, I'll do enough, but not where I'm overreaching, because that's one of the reasons why I didn't want to do the Walt Disney World marathons. Because whenever we did go out there on vacation, the last thing I wanted to do was work or anything. I was just so tired. I just wanted to lay around and rest. And now that I've got a lot more rest, I got 11 hours of sleep last night. Yes,
Nice,
fantastic. I
11
know, huh?
hours. Wow.
11 hours, man. This shows how, and for those of you on the Battleline course, shows how much I put a lot of effort into the Battleline tactical course when I teach. Um, but now that I've got the energy back, yeah, I'm knock it out. As soon as they open up Disney World again, though, we got to wait till Disney World's open back up. But brother, we should do it together. If we got some, do the Battleline podcast, run with our shirts on. I would honestly, or I'll take my shirt off. You can keep yours on. I don't care, whatever. But
You know what would totally do it is Will Cow is such a Disney.
oh
Believe it or
yeah,
not, is such a Disney guy. I remember our mutual friend Tom Basili, who some of you may know, saying like Andrew doesn't seem like a guy who'd be at the happiest place on earth.
oh
But
yeah.
so Will Cow on his Facebook the other day was, I don't know enough about Disney. I've been there several times, but he's like, question for when this is all over, which suite should I be in for Disney, or like this hotel or this hotel? And I was just like, dude, go someplace other than Disney. It's the only place he vacations. Like, I've known the guy for like a decade, and the only time he leaves New Jersey or New York is to go to Disney World. I'm like, there's
I,
other things to explore. And he's like, but Paul, his youngest son, he's like, he's just getting to understand everything. So I'm like, all right, well, have fun, man.
it's right. He's right, bro. I can't argue with that because that's kind of the same way. And I'm a DVC. I tell Wilcow he needs to join the DVC club, the Disney Vacation Club. I know it's like a timeshare thing, but it's completely worth it. And you do save a ton of money by being part of that club and staying at the places that you can stay, all the resorts on Disney, not just the hotel resorts, but the actual resorts where you're at a condo on Disney. and all the perks you get from it, dude. I've been going to Disney since, again, every year I came back from a deployment. That's the first place I went because it'd get me back in the right mindset, being happy again. You're still happy because you're with your kids. So since 2004, I've been a DVC member and going back to Disney World and Disneyland every once in a while, but most of the time Disney World. And I still haven't done everything. I still haven't seen and done everything you can do at Disney World. That's how much there is to do there. It is. I still have not done and stayed everywhere on the property that I want to do. And fishing there, bass fishing, brother, you're fishing from a perspective on the lakes because you've been to Disney World. There's lakes all in the parks. So coming in a boat and fishing like in Epcot, but seeing from that perspective of from a lake looking outward towards Epcot, so it's different. It's neat, and you're catching some big ass bass. So there's other things to do there than just go to the park. I fish. My favorite thing to do there at Disney World is actually go on fishing excursions, and you're going to catch a lot of fish. My daughter, when she was 5, caught a blunker, a huge largemouth bass that was almost as big as her. And then we caught it right on the dock, near the dock of the where it's the New Orleans dishes, the French Quarter Resort, which is people don't even know you have that. French Quarter Resort. Yeah, there's a whole New Orleans district that emulates the French Quarter on the backside of Disney World. And a lot of people don't know that because there's so much shit to do there. So I can't argue with Will Cal, man. I feel the same way. I feel the same way, and I love it. And going jogging there, running there on when you're staying near the resorts, it's awesome because there's running trails everywhere. New Balance sponsors Disney World's trails, so there's New Balance, the shoe company New Balance. There's New Balance trails every resort you go. There's a map of a New Balance trail that they've mapped out for a distance. It's awesome, dude. It's awesome. So much
That's
fun.
great. I know we have Jack Carr standing by, so before we get to him, and I should actually ask, and I should point this out for the audience, once things are open again, I will be back in the studio. Sound quality will be back to normal. But am I cutting out at all? Is everything
No, sound good. You sound
great then.
You sound sexy, you biatch. Sexy,
well,
biatch,
thank you, man. Well, with that, before we bring on Jack, who I know is standing by, you've heard us talk about them in some earlier episodes, and I'm really excited to say Everyday Grind is a sponsor of this podcast. Everyday Grind is an online coffee business right by Chris in Elkhorn, Nebraska, which is why I was joking with Chris. I bet Chris was like, I'll run over there and see Josh, take a drive over. But yeah, the owner and founder, Josh Meyer, is inspired by everyone out there who is grinding every day for themselves and for their families. His vision with this was not to be like other coffee companies. It's not. And by the way, what I should say? Am I sounding very New York? Is it because I'm thinking coffee? And you guys are like coffee.
You're right in the middle, dude. You're like coffee. Yeah, right there. Coffee. You're good. You're good.
Well, so with that, it's not only about having a nice cup of coffee. Everyday Grind coffee is a friendly reminder to wake up motivated, ready to grind. Josh feels he can relate to a lot of people who are grinding every day. Over the past 10 years, he's worked in sales, advertising, and marketing. He always grinds no matter what he's doing. And this all led to Josh's passion. It took him a while to figure this out, but his passion is to motivate others. Josh enjoys being around and meeting like-minded individuals. Josh is a huge military supporter, always has been, and that's why he wanted to be a part of Battleline podcast. Actually got the chance to meet you not too long ago, Tonto, at a book signing in Omaha, which was actually at Inner 10, a local gun range.
Yeah, fantastic gun range. But Josh, I still buying his coffee, still brewing it in my little press, and no, it's fantastic. It's good. It's mild. Got that medium roast taste. There's no sometimes you can get skunky when you do when you're doing a press and pressing. Having a good grind for a press is hard to find a lot of time, and it's perfect. It's just always mild, but you can still taste the coffee. And Josh, of course, being here in Elkhorn, he puts a lot of work into it. He's a small company. And that says a lot too, because he's working his butt off right now trying to get it up, and I think it's doing very well. And I'm a true believer. And if you go check Josh out and you check Everyday Grind Coffee, he actually does some workouts too.
Yep,
So
yep.
you see what kind of person he is. So if you want to get a new workout, go follow Everyday Grind Coffee, and you'll see him doing some workouts and putting that on the net. And Josh is in shape. Again, it just all comes back to his work ethic, and it shows like all of the companies that we have. They put their heart and soul into it. They work hard at it. They believe in it. Well, it makes it good, and it says a lot for the quality of their product. And Everyday Grind Coffee is no different. So, and I'm drinking it right now.
Oh,
Actually,
nice.
drinking every day. I always do because I don't want to fall asleep on you, Ian. And I got my Everyday Grind Coffee right now in my Mickey Mouse, one of my Mickey Mouse cups. We're just speaking of Disney World.
Which I don't see because you don't have your video up.
Nah,
But,
dude,
I
my
do
phone
believe
will die. I'm sorry.
I will take your word. But yeah, no, great guy, and I know you signed a book for his brother-in-law and himself.
Yeah.
And now he has a promo code for us. So go follow Everyday Grind Coffee on Facebook and Instagram at Everyday Grind Coffee. Go check out the Everyday Grind podcast, which he is now doing on Spotify and the Anchor app. A lot of people we've had on, we've inspired to do podcasts. Josh, Gary Krugman is now doing a podcast.
Good podcast. So, yep.
Yeah, check those out. I mean, if you know, we got plenty of time to check out all this great content. And order online the medium dark roast he has available. Not only do both of us love it, my family has really loved Josh's coffee. So everydaygrindcoffee.com. Use coupon code Battleline to get 20% off, and that's brand new. He just put up that coupon code for us. Battleline for 20% off. Everydaygrindcoffee.com. You guys are not going to regret it. I know there's plenty of choices out there for online brands putting coffee out, but his is just so on point.
Yeah, guys, give it a try, and he packages it nice. You don't have any problems with it coming in damaged, because there's sometimes you have to worry about that. How's the packaging? That stuff, it's safe. It gets to you no matter where it's going. It's going to be perfect when it gets to your house, and you're going to love it. And I recommend doing a press with it. I know some will do instant with the instant coffee, but I still dig a press. And you know, it's still 6-7 minutes to do a press. How long does it take to do an instant coffee on a drip? 6-7 minutes, and it adds to the flavor, definitely. So give it a try, man. Give Everyday Grind Coffee a try, and I know I sound like an infomercial, like the sunglass commercial.
No, it's true though.
But you're gonna stick with it. You won't go back to anything else.
Super affordable too with the promo code.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So with that, let's bring on Jack Carr. I'm excited to talk to him.
I got you. How's it going out there?
Doing good, man. I'm the only one who's my camera on, so we're just using audio. So
I'm freezing my balls off, man. Get back in fucking Nebraska. This is just bitching. I was just being a whiny bitching ranger again. I was like, damn, Ian, Oklahoma, teaching that course. It was 75 degrees. It was beautiful. I was out there running. I come back home to Nebraska. It's 50 and fucking cold. Son of a bitch. I suck again. I swear.
I'm looking right now. It is it's 61 and sunny here. Just went for a run, as I was saying.
Oh, you shut your whore mouth, Ian. Shut up. Just stop rubbing it in.
So with that, I should, of course, give Jack an intro. Special guest this show, retired Navy SEAL, turned New York Times best-selling thriller writer, Jack Carr. Latest book is Savage Son. And before we even get into that, I saw last night, huge announcement. The Terminal List is going to star Chris Pratt, which is based on your earlier work, and that's going to be available on Amazon. That's an awesome announcement.
Yeah. Wow.
That's crazy. Yeah, it's been quite the whirlwind. Launching a novel in the midst of COVID-19, trying to adapt at the last second to a book tour reimagined, turned virtual, and yeah, it hit the New York Times list during that, and then the Pratt announcement. It was kind of crazy.
Well, how are you going to do with the virtual book tours? And we were talking about this earlier. We've had a lot of people from Simon & Schuster, a lot in perspective, coming on the show. And I'm with one of your competitors. I write for Hachette Books, and I was like, well, God, we got to get some Hachette people on there. They're not going to want me to write another book because I'm having all these Simon. But you know, we toyed because all the book signings and the speaking event stuff, of course, were postponed because of this. How are you doing a virtual book tour? I think that is something that's brand new. It's unprecedented, and we discussed that with Hachette. I'm curious. Me personally, I'm curious how you guys are planning that out, and if Simon & Schuster is ahead of the curve, I'm going to go back to Hachette and say, hey, they're doing this. Why aren't we doing this? And but I'd like to know, because it's something that's completely different, and how can, because you want that personal experience on a book signing. are you really getting it on a virtual tour? And that was my question. I was like, are they really getting that? So I'd love to hear about it, man. What have you guys discussed as far as your book tour, and what are you doing to make it that personal experience? Because you're on a video camera. How's that working?
Yeah, it's crazy. So it's kind of a holistic type approach. So it's not just transitioning to video and trying
Okay.
to make it
Okay.
like a in-person book tour. But like I think my book was one of the first ones to really come out during the height of the crisis.
Yeah. Yeah.
In the fiction side anyway. And we'd planned on that in-person book tour, because you're shaking hands, you're thanking everybody,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
you're getting that associated content from them and that word of mouth that goes along with that. So
Yeah.
it's and to have that go to zero, it doesn't just hurt me as the author, it also hurts those independent bookstores out
Oh
there that are
yeah. Yep.
depending on you to bring people in and not just buy your book, but maybe a couple others and all that. So really when this kind of came to a head and we realized, okay, there's not going to be an in-person book tour, it's time to adapt. So just like on the battlefield, I looked at it kind of like the enemy is adapting to us, and we have to adapt to that enemy and try to do it faster than they're doing it, and look for emerging opportunities and gaps and all the rest of it. So I just kind of took a breath and figured out, hey, how do I do this? And it was important to me to do it in an appropriate way, meaning a lot of people are out there suffering. A lot of people are losing their jobs. Don't have that income coming in. So how do I do a little good along the way as I launch this thing? So I came up with the idea of doing a limited edition Savage Son book plate for the third book that you can only get through those independent bookstores that are on my site. So I'm trying to push traffic their way as they try to adapt to these changing conditions as well. So pushing that traffic there, even though it's not foot traffic, sending them there. And then I have some merchandise on my site, like hats and bottle breachers and these cool bookmarks from a veteran-owned company that has a 5.56 round attached. And I had 100% of those profits going to the COVID-19 response fund. So trying to do a little good at the same time, something to talk about in interviews. And then the book signings, I really did a kind of a blanket approach. So I just didn't set up a Facebook Live or an Instagram Live or a Premier Collectibles type live or a Shop Talk Live. I did it all because I knew certain audiences would be able to figure some of those out, not others, and because they're all a little bit different. But it just doing all of them to do as much as I possibly could to get this thing out there. So it was kind of all together and all, it was crazy, but it seemed to have worked out.
It's interesting because, we were planning on having Jack in studio, or at least I was, because I'm in New York. Chris is always in Nebraska, and through David, who you work with, who works with Brad Thor and all that, he's been telling me for months, you got to get Jack in studio. I got to meet you, when I was with the previous podcast. I think it's been either a year or a couple of years ago. It's been
2 years, yeah.
Yeah, it flies by, man. But yeah, everything changed. But I have to say, you are adapting, and really the evidence of that was when I was on Instagram and I saw Joe Rogan putting on Instagram. I mean, Joe's following is obviously huge. He's like, this book is amazing. Go read Savage Son. And then the next day, that he posted it up, he has you on the podcast, which, by the way, is like the only podcast which is having you in studio because he's got testing there. I want to hear about that.
I don't know how much I'm allowed to say about that without getting anybody in trouble. But yeah, I tested negative. But but yeah, and he's been great. But what's also really cool about this is that the three big things that I was kind of like kind of hoping for in the lead up to launch or for that first week were to be on Rogan, to have Chris Pratt announce the series or Amazon announce the series, and then to do some sort of a national TV show like a Fox and Friends type deal, something like that. Like those were kind of the big three, and none of them happened. None. In that first week, which is the one that where all the pre-orders count, the list and all that sort of thing. So none of them happened in the lead up to that first week or during that first week. They all happened after. But now, looking back, I am so glad they happened after, because now no one can say like, oh, you just made the New York Times list because Rogan had you on, or you just made it because they put you on Fox and Friends, or you just made it because Amazon announced it. It was all grassroots. It's all hunters. It's all tactical shooters. It's all readers. It's all of that grassroots grassroots word of mouth, someone taking a risk on a new author, telling a friend, having that person take a risk, telling their friend in person and virtually, whether they have like one follower or 10,000 or whatever. But it was all grassroots word of mouth. And so that I'm really proud of that part of it. Although I would have taken any of that help from any of those big three. No, don't get me wrong. But now it's kind of cool that it happened just after, because it's another wave. Also, people that would not have known about the book, but getting it on that New York Times list is important, and not because it hits a readership that is hard to get to otherwise. It's people that aren't necessarily hunters or shooters on Instagram, that sort of thing. They're not. They're people that look at that New York Times list, and that's how they find out about the books that they want to read and tell friends about and talk about. So it is important in that sense. And also, I grew up reading all these guys. Like, I knew I was going to do this from a very early age. I wanted to serve my country in uniform as a SEAL, and I wanted to write fiction. And so I grew up seeing New York Times bestseller on the covers of books by guys like Tom Clancy and Nelson DeMille and David Morrell, and A.J. Quinnell and J.C. Pollock, and all these guys in the 80s who had protagonists with backgrounds that I wanted to have in real life one day. So it's kind of surreal making that list, and it was a special day when I got that word.
Oh, that's amazing, bro. I want to you put out, because we talked about a little bit, not so much what's going on with the book, but how you what you just talked about. You really overcame, you adapted, but it's keeping that initiative. We talked a little bit about it. We actually talk about a little bit about it every show, but how, even when you're faced with adversity, you found a way to overcome, and how that came from. Were you born like that, or did that come from this? And I know where it came from, but I want our listeners to hear that. I want our listeners to hear that even in the worst case scenario, it doesn't have to be in combat. You still find a way to accomplish the mission, and they succeed, and then even excel, as you have done in this crazy time right now. And I hate saying uncertain time, because I see it too much on TV. Uncertain. I don't want to sound like a TV commercial again, but what made you do that? How do you keep that? People need to be able to continue to fight on and drive on. And I just want you to give them some advice. I want to hear the positiveness from you, and a lot of our listeners need that, really, especially at this point in time in their lives.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. I think uncertain is a good one. That's why we see it so much, is because it's true. People don't know who to trust out there. You're seeing politicians say things on one side, then the other. You're seeing doctors say things here and there. You're seeing the World Health Organization. You're seeing numbers from all these other countries. No one can trust any of it. And, that lends itself to that word, to uncertainty. But yeah, I think, the books, even before all this, the books were resonating with people because the feelings and emotions that the protagonist feels come from a real place. And a lot of that, particularly in the second one, True Believer, everybody's going to get knocked down in life. No one is not going to get knocked down. You're going to get hit, and you're going to get knocked down. And what defines you is getting back up, how you do that, and moving forward. And that's really incorporated. It's incorporated into all the novels, but particularly the second one, which deals with transition and really a violent redemption for the protagonist. But we're all going to get knocked down. And so going into this, things were looking good. Had this book tour planned out a year in advance, that sort of thing. And then boom, here comes COVID-19. Everything canceled. Now, time to pivot, time to adapt, time to drive forward, because we don't just want to survive something. We want to prevail. No, we want to prevail in a gunfight. We want to prevail in life, not just survive, not just stumble through it. But I think that all came, it was just kind of innate in me from an early age to want to be able to provide for my family, to be able to defend my family, all those things that humans have been doing since the beginning of time. They were just kind of innate in me from a very early age. And I think some of that is because my grandfather was killed in World War II. He was killed off Okinawa in 1945 near the end of the war. But I grew up with the silk maps that they used to give aviators and through the Corsair. I grew up with pictures of his squadron, black and white photos. I just knew that one day I would join the military and follow in his footsteps. So that was like innate from an early age. And then just getting outside, I was just drawn to the wilderness, drawn to the outdoors, and not just to walk along a path, but to live out there, to be comfortable out there, to know how to survive out there, to help others out there. So it's just been that foundation from the earliest memories that I have, and that just translated through the SEAL teams, obviously, and that reinforces all those things. But now in that scenario, much more part of a team, obviously.
Sure.
And then moving forward into today, like I don't expect not to get knocked down in the future. Like I know another punch is coming.
Yeah,
And,
no, it always is.
that's how life is. That is part of it.
Yeah.
So don't be surprised when it happens. Don't be surprised when you get knocked down. Like even with the Amazon announcement and the series, I'm keeping my expectations very low. In that I expect it to go off the rails at any time, and I don't want to be disappointed when that happens. If it gets made, I'll be pleasantly surprised, and that'll be wonderful. But at the same time, I'm not going to be devastated if it doesn't. I'm going to keep moving forward.
He's not saying to always set your standards low so you're never disappointed. We're not saying that, guys out there.
This is Hollywood specific.
I know. just hope, plan for the worst, hope for the best. How many times have you heard that? And I've heard that within the community. That's pretty much how you go into anything. But you said something that every one of our guests, every one of us successful in their own right, has always said, move forward. You're always moving forward. You never stop. You never stay stagnant. No matter what happens, get up, keep moving forward. Even if it's these small baby steps, keep moving forward. If there's a theme from our shows, Ian and my shows, it's that we try to stay positive because we have guests on here that have never given up, no matter what they're faced, no matter what adversity they're faced with. They just like, screw it. Okay, I got knocked down. I'm just going to keep driving on. And you've done it. You're doing it now. And I do recommend it. And Savage Son is the one that, if I'm correct, help me out here. That's the one I would honestly recommend people to read in this point in time because of that being knocked down and picked up. Is that correct, or am I off, brother? Maybe I got the wrong book.
That's the latest book, Savage Son, and yeah, they all deal with getting knocked down and getting up and moving forward. I mean, that's kind of that's a sub theme through all of them because and that's why it resonates with people because people have been knocked down in life and they have to figure out what they're gonna do, and so the book is the same way. The books are the same way because they reflect, even though they're 100% fiction, they represent things that I've been through in life and things that I've taken and then just applied to a fictional narrative. So,
gotcha.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about. You have a choice to make in life. You can either positively affect those around you, whether you're in a crazy scenario, whether you've dealt with something horrible in the past, or you can drag them down with you. Like that is a choice. And imagine going through life, going through however long that is, that gift, however long you're allowed to be here, negatively impacting people that you come across throughout that time, or being a positive influence and inspiring them and helping them move forward. It's a distinct choice that every one of us gets to make. So, we try to keep our circle here with my family to those that positively influence those around them. And, but you can do the opposite too. And it's amazing, especially on social media, because I'm still fairly new to it, how negative people are.
It's my God, dude, I have done tests and I've tested this out for the last 5 years. I hate social media, but you got to have it. You're going to have to, you got to have it. Do a negative post, see how many likes it gets, see how many shares, and then do something positive. And I've done the math, the research. It's almost 3-1. 3-1 on a negative post that gets reposted, just the hate that's out there right now. And so it's terrible, but it can get better. We can fix that. And this is one way we're doing it right now, talking to you. It's say, hey man, you don't have to repost the negative sides all the time. Just be positive, and that's the way we're going to beat it. But it can drive you nuts, man. It really can. And honestly, I don't know if your books are 100% fiction, because I've known some traitorous CIA officers. Just forgive me, I have. So I've met a couple of them. But I'm playing out there, CIA. I'm playing. Just don't anybody get pissed off. I know I just butthurt a few people out there, but I brother, what you're saying is tremendous. I'm loving people hearing this right now. So thank you. And I'm not trying to lick your butthole by kissing your ass or nothing. I'm just saying, hey man, you're doing good things, and I appreciate that, because we need more people like that out there, like yourself, doing and being positive. And this story right now, you're still being successful, 100%. And everything went to shit, and you still found a way you're still finding a way, still overcoming all the turnover that happened because of this damn Corona thing.
Yeah, I want to get into the specifics of the book itself in a little bit, but I figured we would get into this because during the intro, Chris and I were talking about your background, 20 years of service in naval special warfare, deployments to Iraq, Afghanistan, the Philippines, and you served in several teams, if I remember correctly, right?
That's right. So I came in enlisted and started at SEAL Team 5 before 9/11. So we got there and we all thought that we were going to get issued our pagers and all this amazing gear, and then they'd go off and we'd fly off and do the Save the Princess op and then get back in time for beers. And that wasn't really how it happened. They kind of just handed you a mop when you crossed that quarterdeck and hey, new guy, go clean that bathroom, go change that light bulb, paint that wall, whatever it is. And so it was a little different. But then September 11th happened, and then we got to do the things that we thought we were going to do when we came into the SEAL team. So started at Team 5 enlisted and was a sniper there, and then went to OCS, did 3 months of doing exactly what you do in boot camp, except you get yelled at by a Marine instructor instead of a Navy one, and then right back to the SEAL teams because somehow folding underwear and t-shirts somehow qualifies you to lead men in battle. So right back to the SEAL teams, and then because I'd already gone through BUDS, already gone through SEAL qualification training, already done 2 deployments, one post 9/11, it was right into the fight from there. So it was if you were going to become an officer, it was a good timing worked out. So then I went SEAL Team 2 on the East Coast, and then finished up my time as a troop commander at SEAL Team 7 back on the West Coast. And then that's where I started writing. And during that last year, when your job becomes to get out of the military after you drop your papers, and you kind of go in that separate pile, and you go to dental and medical and get read out of secret programs and turn in your gear or whatever else you have to do. That's when I had some time, and so that's when I shifted to starting to write the first novel, The Terminal List. So that was it was a good run, but it was also very evident that my family needed me. We have a special needs middle child who needs 24/7 full-time care forever, and my wife had been dealing with that through all the deployments, and not just the deployments, but the whole workup where you're a month in the desert doing desert warfare training. You're on a 2-week jump trip. You're on a couple-week dive trip. You're doing mountain warfare, whatever you're doing to get ready for that deployment. She's back home dealing with our middle child and dealing with everything else while I'm out there running around doing the deed. So it was very evident after that last deployment to Iraq when I was a troop commander, so an 04, which is a major in the other services, lieutenant commander in the Navy, and it was time to shift focus and get out and take care of my family. So it wasn't something that I agonized over. And then knowing that I wanted to write from early age, I just knew the path that I was going to take. And for whatever reason, I didn't waste any bandwidth worried about how hard it is to get published, kind of like I didn't worry about how hard it was to get to BUDS or get through BUDS, get through Hell Week, get to the SEAL teams, get to wherever I deployed to, Ramadi, wherever else. I never wasted bandwidth on how hard it was, how dangerous it was, whatever. I focused on being the best operator that I possibly could. And then before the Navy, I focused on the things I needed to do to get there, to prepare, or back then, before the internet, the things I thought I needed to do to prepare myself for BUDS, for SEAL training. So same thing with writing. I never wasted any bandwidth on, how hard is it to get published by a major publisher? How hard is it to get picked up, optioned for a film? Like, none of that was part of my calculus. It was just like, okay, it's hard. Boom. All my bandwidth is now spent doing the job, preparing myself and making this the best book it can possibly be out of the gate. And in my mind, I always knew it's going to get picked up by Simon & Schuster. Emily Bessler at Simon & Schuster is going to be my editor. She was Vince Lynn's editor. She's Brad Thor's editor. And I knew, Chris Pratt's going to pick this up because he's the guy I want to play the part. And Anton Fuqua was going to direct because he did Shooter, he did Training Day, he did Tears of the Sun, Equalizer, Magnificent Seven. Awesome guy. And those are the only 2 people I thought of. And now, picked up by Simon & Schuster, Chris Pratt playing the lead, and Anton Fuqua directing it. So things can come full circle like that.
I didn't know that. I didn't know you had a special needs son. I didn't know that and that's amazing. Your wife, brother, your warrior course, and coming from a Ranger, telling that to a SEAL, that's hard for me to do. Man, I'm kidding, brother. I'm fucking with you. But knowing your wife, that is amazing, man. Wives are amazing, and she's tremendous. I hope she's listening. When she does listen to this, from me to her, she is the ultimate warrior. Wives are what keep us going. Wives are what keeps the deployments going. We step back and finally get away from it, and we look back like, man, I really had it easy. I was the one that was deploying all the time. I didn't have to worry about the kids back home, and I didn't have to worry about the bills. I just had to make sure I didn't die and I came home. I mean, that's what I had to worry. That's it. One worry, and she's back home taking care of everything. You got a tremendous wife there, brother, and man, I can't believe that. That's astounding to me because I didn't know that, and that I know how hard that is with keeping a relationship going, but also with your special needs son. And brother, how old is he now? If you don't mind me asking, I think you said it, and I might have missed it. Forgive me, I'm getting old and senile. I'm almost 50, so
I'm right behind you there. So no, he's 12 now. So we have a 14-year-old daughter, 12-year-old son with the special needs, and then
Wow.
the 9-year-old as well. So he's right there in the middle. But a crazy part of
Wow.
that is like we didn't know we were in the military. So we knew when he was born something was
Sure.
off. Didn't quite know what it was. Of course, military medicine, we're trying to figure it out. We tried to do some things on the private side too, going to Cedars-Sinai up in LA, trying to figure this out. And then 7 years into it, after my last Iraq deployment, I get a call out of the blue from Ross Perot, who passed away this last summer. And he sounded exactly like Dana Carvey impersonating Ross Perot.
Oh,
But
that's awesome.
one of his financial advisors knew a friend of ours, and he walked into Mr. Burrow's office and said, "Hey, sir, I think you wanna hear this story," and hands him a printout of an email from our friend, and Mr. Perot said, "Get him on the phone." And so he calls me out of the blue and says they're going to put together a team of genetic specialists at Southwestern Medical Center outside of Dallas, and they're going to fly us out there and figure this out. And then he hangs up, and I'm like, "Whoa. What just happened?" And an hour later, his lead doctor calls and said, "You know what? Hey, send us everything you have on your son from Cedars-Sinai, from the military, anything else you've done, and we'll put this team together, and then we'll send the G550 out for you and fly you out here, and we'll see what we can do." And sure enough, about a month later, they sent the G550 and had a nurse on board for our son, and we got on there and flew out, and that's why the G550 is in my latest novel, actually. And then, landed and met Mr. Perot, and he sure enough, he had a team of genetic specialists there in Dallas that figured this out. They sent our blood all around the world, and they found a researcher in the Netherlands who had just discovered the specific genetic mutation, and our son was the 13th in the world that they'd ever diagnosed with this. Yeah, so.
Wow.
Yeah, incredible, and actually bringing that into the second novel, True Believer. One of the characters has a child with the same genetic condition. So once again, these things are they're fiction. They're 100% fiction, but there are personal elements in there that resonates with people.
You know what's crazy is, I mean, I think for a lot of people, they just and the media kind of spins things that one person is known for one thing and that's it. And I think the general public just knows Ross Perot as the rich guy who ran for president, and people say spoiled the election for Bush.
Right.
But when you hear a story like that, it tells me Ross Perot is a true patriot and cares about his fellow man, cares about veterans.
Oh yeah, and he did that for things like that for so many veterans out there, never seeking any recognition for it, but countless veterans he did things exactly like that for. Just an amazing guy. I got to say hello to him again on my first book tour when I passed through Dallas, and he still had a picture of our son right there on his desk, which was incredible. Just an amazing human being. And people can go back and read Ken Follett's book called On Wings of Eagles, which is about Ross Perot and getting some of his employees out of Iran in 1979. So just, an incredible story, incredible patriot, Naval Academy graduate, and he's been, since that time, he's been just connected to the military, special operations in particular, for all of his life, really. So fantastic. I'll never be able to thank him or his family enough for what they did for us.
That's just, brother. I'm still at all. You guys are, you and your family have all my prayers and blessings, man. As much as God allows me to give with all the mistakes I've made in my life, man. But I tell you what, I'm impressed, even more impressed with you now. And how is it, your son with him, and what can you tell me? What does it do? I'm curious, and I just ask questions because I am curious.
Yeah.
With his ailment, what does that cause? What can he do? I mean, always, I know he's like his daddy. He can do anything, and I know you pushed him that way. But are things that he can't do, that he has problems with, and how do you overcome those as a father? How do you overcome and how do you help? Because you're a tremendously positive individual. That's why you're successful. How do you do that as a father? And all you listeners out there that may have special needs children, listen to Jack here, and let him tell you how he's helped and continue to make a positive difference in his son's life. And I want to know, because I have a 4-year-old, a 15-year-old, and I'm always trying to be a better father as well. So what do you do? What aspects do you? How do you teach? How do you train? How do you train? I'm not trained.
Yeah, no, I get it.
But can you go into that a little bit if you don't mind? If it's too difficult, I understand. But
No, absolutely. Absolutely, yeah. So it manifests itself as a global developmental disability, meaning, and there's not that many people out there. Obviously, he's the 13th. I'm guessing they're
Yeah.
up to about 100 now, but there's not that big of a pool to study. But it manifests itself as a global developmental disability, meaning he's smaller physically, mentally. He's
Wow.
probably maybe like a 2-year-old maybe, and so he'll need help eating, going to the bathroom, get zipped into this special
Sure.
bed every night. So yeah, it's. I mean, you need someone right there on him every single second. So I'm in my office right now doing this, and on the other side of these doors in my office, my wife is out there with him right now, just making sure that he's safe, and he's getting fed and all the rest of it. But he's a sweet little guy. He also makes little jokes. So yeah, he like if he met you, we said your name, he'd put a Z on the front of it, and then he'd just start cracking up. So he has these little jokes that he does.
That's awesome.
He's on his iPad a lot, and he gets
Yeah.
he looks at all these different languages, and so it's kind of a mystery, like what his brain is really doing in there. But he's a sweet little guy. He makes jokes. He just needs help doing everything forever. So that's kind of how it manifests itself. But yeah, for us, I would look at it like, we have to look at it in hey, we were given him for a reason. It has to be that we're strong enough to handle it and to that condition and to help him reach his full potential, whatever that may be. Like, that's our mission in life. But there's also the other side, which is raising the other two kids so that their childhoods aren't solely defined by their brother's condition. Because
Okay. Sure.
when you're solely focused on, when you have someone that needs to be taken care of, who's 12, that needs to be taken care of like this, you can, I can see that if you had two other kids, it would be very easy for them to feel like you're always focused on the special needs child. So knowing that, we take steps to ensure that we get out there and we do things with the other kids, and look at it as, hey, we are all in this as a family. We're in this as a team, and he is sandwiched between two amazing other kids, and there's a reason for that. So hopefully it makes us all stronger. Hopefully it makes the other kids, well, us as a family, more loving, more compassionate, more understanding going forward. So that's so we just, it's just kind of the cards we were dealt, and you got to play them the best you can, just like anybody else.
No, it sounds like it's grown you as an individual as well. I want to get into the book itself, because Savage Son getting high praise from Joe Rogan in itself is huge. I'd love to hear about where you got the idea from, the CIA versus Navy SEAL narrative, and also if people are wondering if they didn't pick up the Terminal List, should they start with Savage Son? Should they start with the first book? What would you recommend?
Yeah, Joe started with a third one. So I always like to read things in order, but oftentimes I do discover a series mid-series, and I'm like, oh, this is amazing. Then I go back and I start at the beginning. So I'm guessing other people are like that as well. But there's only 3 books now, so you can go back and grab the first novel and don't have too much to read to get to the latest one, Savage Son. But interestingly enough, Amazon picked it up, and guess who's out of books? Amazon.
Amazon.
Right?
Oh, no.
Like,
It's good though, man.
It's good.
Problem.
Well, I guess you never know. I mean, we talk about it in terms of it being a good problem to have, but then, how many books did they have?
How many books did they have? Exactly. That's right.
Or 10,000.
That's what I was going to say, because I remember Books A Million ran out of books once, but it was like, yeah, well, that's fantastic, but they only bought 200 books.
Right.
So I'm like, well, not really, because why they only? So now I get it, but so we're going to stay positive though. We're going to say that's a good thing that they had 10,000 books and they went the first week. Let's just stay positive. They're out of books.
Yeah. So they're out of the first one. They're out of the Terminal List, and I think they're out of the hardback True Believer also. But
you can still do the Audible, right? And
yeah, Audible just made the New York Times list, Audible list. They have a special one. They have an Audible list, so that just made that great. Ray Porter is the narrator who just knocks it out of the park. He's fantastic. The first book, audio, was up for Audiobook of the Year, so it was crazy being back there in New York, putting on the tux, and seeing the book up there next to Stephen King, like crazy. Totally
That's awesome.
But where these came from, particularly the second book, if we're talking CIA specific, the second one, True Believer, was inspired by something that happened to me in Iraq in 2006, where I was working for what can best be described as a covert action unit attached to another government agency out there.
Sure.
So you're working with indigenous forces type thing, and I was the only military attached to it. We had a bunch of course, other government agency people that were doing most of the work, and my job was to deconflict battle space, do tactical communications in TAR that sort of thing.
Yep.
So during that time, we had one guy from the indigenous side of the house who was like head and shoulders above his peers. He was a squadron commander for this sovereign Iraqi unit, and his English was amazing. I mean, he looked like he was out of central casting. He could do the close target recce stuff, bring back that
Wow.
intelligence. But most importantly, he could make decisions under fire, which was unique. I don't know if that's your experience as well, Chris.
Yeah. It's hard.
A lot of those people that we work with, because in a lot of those countries, making decisions under fire, deviating from the plan, taking a risk, if it doesn't work out, wasn't necessarily rewarded if it didn't work out.
Yeah,
It wasn't like learn from our mistakes and move forward. It was kind of like, okay, off with your head, off with your hand, something like that. So, but
it wasn't conducive to a good learning environment at all. No, it wasn't conducive. No. Not at all.
It didn't encourage them to take risks on the battlefield and adapt. But this guy, he did. So that made him stand out to me. He was a great guy, got to know him. And then years later, through the grapevine, I found out that he disappeared. And I was like, interesting. What if I was to take this and to fictionalize it and to have him disappear because he was upset that we left at the end of 2011, and maybe something happens to his family. Maybe he works his way with refugees up into Europe, and maybe he takes those skills that he was taught by the U.S. military and other government agencies and uses those now against the Western world. So that kind of laid the foundation for what happens in my second novel, True Believer. So to answer your question, Ian, some of that came from real world. Of course, it's all fictionalized, but it's inspired by things that have happened to me along my path. So so that's really where that comes from. And then also the continuing theme of dealing with politicians and senior CIA officials that are not necessarily that are on the antagonist side of the house, I'll say. It's not that hard to make a politician see me evil, or a senior CIA bureaucrat see me evil. Like, it's kind of they're kind of fodder for that sort of thing, because there's so many examples of that disconnect between that level and the guys that are doing it on the ground at the tactical level.
It's funny because it's true. That's the only reason I'm laughing so hard. It's funny because it's true. And you know what, with the your guy that inspired you, that's quite possible too. Again, because you don't find that often. You don't find, honestly, indigenous, especially Iraqi. And I found that more so with Iraqis than with the Afghanis. And maybe my experience was different because we worked a lot with the NDS guys there in Afghanistan. And for those that are NDS, are like their CIA people when we were in Afghanistan, Iraqi. But you did find that in Iraq more. So when you found somebody that was capable, my first thing was, gosh, was he trained by somebody else? Because obviously he wasn't here. Who's been getting trained by? Was it our people, or was he getting trained by the Iranian forces, or did he get his training by the Chechenian forces? What's going? So there always was the spider senses went up. But that being said, you never knew, because I never knew what happened to him. Once we'd leave, it's like, well, I really don't know what's going on. It's not my problem. And I hate to say it, but that's what you do. You come back, it's not my problem anymore. And you feel that way with the locals until you get more time in. When your first time in, it's like, well, I'm just trying to do my job. So to have that and that book, just let you guys know out there reading the books, man, just think of it that way. It's quite possible that could happen. That's why you're a tremendous writer. Me and Ian were talking about this at the beginning of the show. Like, that's why your books are so good, is because you can pull the stuff that could have happened, and it sounds, you talk the lingo, you've been there, you've done that. It sounds correct. It's not totally outlandish that you have some guy reading a book, even though it's fiction, especially a guy that's been down range and says, man, that shit could never happen. Where yours is like, yeah, this could happen. And it's so outlandish, but you're like, wait a second, that's possible? Yeah, actually it is. And I know you write it in such a way that it comes across that way. So what I'm saying to guys is you have read Jack's books, and when you read them, they are fiction, but maybe not. I'm not saying they aren't. I don't want to get you in trouble, but they are fiction. But it's possible, because the world is such a crazy ass place, and politicians are such just. I'm saying this, Jack is not. I am saying this. Politicians are dirty motherfuckers. But that's why, again, fantastic, and I want people to read your stuff, because and it's entertaining, and again, you have that personal experiences that you aren't getting super crazy with your write-ups that there's no way that could happen. Like, you're not bending bullets and shit like that. You're right. You're right. So, but that's great to hear. And I know I'm thinking when you're talking right then, just like, man, memories just coming back, and it's making me smile and feel good. So I just appreciate the conversation with you right now, man. Thanks.
Oh man, I appreciate that. And I get asked quite a bit. People ask me, hey, what is what movies are realistic, or hey, do you ever miss it? They ask that. They ask what's realistic, and then they ask, do you ever miss being in the SEAL teams? Do you miss going down range, that sort of thing? And I know a lot of people say, I miss the guys, or I miss the mission, or I miss whatever. And for me, I flipped that switch. I was like, I did that. That was something I did, and now I have flip that switch, and this is what I do. And that past informs what I do going forward. Hopefully it makes me a better citizen. Hopefully it makes me a better father, better husband, better writer. But that's what I did, and this is what I do. So I made that clear distinction. But I bring that up because the only movie that made me for half a second want to get back into it was 13 Hours. I went up to LA and saw a pre-screening of it, and I was on the it was a Paramount lot or wherever.
It was Paramount. Yeah.
So I went to Paramount lot, watched it, and I was, for like half a second when I was walking out of that theater, that was the one. And I think it's because of that time in Iraq in 2006, working with that other government agency, and having such a such a visceral experience, and just it was just such a highlight of my time in uniform. But I think that's why. But that's the only one. That's the one I always recommend and point to when people ask me those couple questions.
I appreciate that, and that's it. We were on set. We made sure things were good. We spent time helping write it. We wanted to make sure, and that's what we wanted to tell. And I was a little skeptical with Michael Bay. I'm like, Michael Bay, are you kidding me? Come on. And then we met him. And like, the dude is awesome. Love that guy. And he loves, and I was a little jealous. Out of all the special SOCOM community guys, he loves SEALs the best. So there you go again. But he uses all the special operations guys in his movies, all the extras. But he wanted to make sure it was right. And we wanted to make sure that dynamic was right. And we wanted to make sure the colors and because most war movies are so drab, and I get it. Iraq's dirty. Parts of Afghanistan, if you're in southern Afghanistan, they're dirty. There's dirt, but it's really not. And I think, and I maybe expound on this a little bit, because my opinion, and whenever stuff started happening, whenever the adrenaline started kicking up, the colors resonated. Things opened up. It wasn't just, God, this is a dirty ass play. It's like, man, those colors were, and the everything around you were so vivid and intense, and the dynamics between us and the CIA were so. Well, it was just like you saw in the movie. It wasn't always nice, but you just saw it. Just was spot on, and I'm glad you said that, because we did take a lot of time to get that done. And I remember Tig also warning Michael Bay if he got it wrong. This was in Bay Studios. The first thing he said to Michael was, "Hey man, if you get this wrong, we're going to waterboard the shit out you." And I remember looking like, Tig, did you just say that to Michael Bay? But yeah,
I'm like negative motivation. Yeah, negative motivation.
That's like, geez, that's Tig for you. But I do just, and don't, we want to talk about a little bit more, but I do want you, if you could, I know you've done some hits. I know you've done plenty of them when you have, and you've also sat in the jock and you've watched teams that you've gone on hits with, and you've had to watch them from afar, which is even more difficult, because I know you wanted to get in there with them after, but that's why you're in the jock, because you've already been there and done that. You need to lead troops from there and coordinate. So you're 2 steps ahead of the game. But, when you were doing it, did you feel the same when you were about ready to enter a room, or when you were going into an area that was hot? Did you feel that sense of, man, blinders are off, like that racehorse? The blinders are off, and I'm really taking it all in, or was it just a blur to you? And I wanted to get into that a little bit, because young guys will ask that to me a lot, and I just said what I think, but I that's my opinion. So I want, because we have a lot of young listeners that are thinking about the military as well. And they want to hear that stuff, and I think they should hear it. Not to romanticize it, because war's hell, people die, but just so they know. And can you maybe a little bit, maybe about a hit you did, and don't have to get it. I don't want you to violate your national security clearances or anything, but just how your feeling was. What did you feel? How did that go?
Yeah, and I'm always not hesitant, but I'm always thoughtful about it, knowing what time does to memory, and how it tends to make it a little rosier than it was, or those things that are just natural for all humans, regardless of what their past was, or what their experience was, or what they did before was. Like right now, looking back, Buzz wasn't that bad. Hell Week, hey, it wasn't that bad. But in it, I mean, I don't. When I was in it, I think it was awful, probably. But so there is that to contend with as well. But what I remember the most is just a distinct focus.
There it
In
is.
this sense
Yeah.
of being responsible for those guys, particularly. I mean, I felt it as an enlisted guy. I felt it as an officer. So that didn't really change. I guess I felt it more the more people I had depending on me.
Sure. Yep.
Depending on my decisions. But it was an intense focus. And I particularly remember Ramadi 2006, 2005, when the IEDs really started to come into in force. I mean, they came in earlier, obviously 2004, but they really in force as a tactical weapon of strategic importance because of what it did to support for the effort on the public side of the house back here. But every time you left the gate, you could look at anything as an IED, whether it was dead donkey or a piece of trash or just a pothole, whatever it was. You could spend your time worried about that and just solely focused on that. Well, guess what? My bandwidth then is not focused on the mission. It isn't focused on being situationally aware enough to know what's going on so that when the bullets started flying or something did happen, that it would take away from me being able to adapt the best I could to whatever was happening to that particular situation. So when you ask that question, I think most about focus and being there, putting that charge on the wall, on the door, whatever it is, backing up a little bit and just remember that second before it goes off and just that intense focus that comes with knowing what's going to happen. Like up until that point, getting to and from the target, anything can happen. But right there, you're making it happen once you put that charge on the door and go in. So it's an intense focus, is what I would say, is what I remember the most.
Thanks, bro. I appreciate you doing that, and at least letting our youngsters out there just prepare yourselves. Prepare yourself for what you're going to get into, and listen to guys like Jack. He's going to tell you the truth from, and that you have both perspectives, the enlisted and the officer perspective, which a lot of people don't have. They aren't the Mustangs. So thanks, bro. I appreciate you doing that a little bit.
Dude, absolutely.
You know what I wanted to ask you about, kind of unrelated. I mean, you're a guy with your 20 years of experience who's seen international tensions boil pre 9/11, as you were saying, and kind of with the current predicament we're in. I was recently watching a video, and I know Chris saw it too, with Gordon Chang talking about the COVID-19 situation. And one thing he said that I thought was interesting was that China has done what no other country has done before, and that's attack every other nation at once. Whether this was intentionally spread, which I'm not saying it is, but there was definitely some form of a cover-up until we found out the severity of COVID-19. And I think people are kind of on the edge of their seats of, is the U.S. going to enter in some kind of a war or foreign conflict with China? From your perspective, your experience, where do you think this is going?
Well, I would hope that we take the lessons from this and apply them going forward at the strategic level, at the operational level, meaning kind of more local type government level, and then as individuals, as families, as communities. What can we do at all those different levels to be more prepared going forward, to adapt to what we've done and take those lessons and apply them in a positive way? Now, as far as when this hit, I was deep into research on my fourth novel, which really deals with the ethics, morality, and legality of targeted assassinations, which is more typically associated with Israel than it is the U.S., but we do it as well, as we can point to last January with the Soleimani hit. But the undercurrent of all that is a situation that includes the weaponization of infectious diseases. So I was studying that. I was studying what the Japanese did prior to World War II, what they did during World War II to the Chinese, and where that information went at the end of the war, what the Soviet Union did from the end of World War II up to the collapse, and then what happened to that information and what they continued to do with Russia, and then what our infectious disease and weaponization program looked like from the end of World War II up to today. So I was hypersensitive when all this hit. But one thing that came out in my study was that in the former Soviet Union, there were a couple instances where an infectious disease escaped a lab, and it wasn't on purpose. And of course, it was covered up because
and which the Soviet Union is a possibility now, and that's not conspiracy theory of the Wuhan lab.
Yeah. Right. And it doesn't even have to be a weaponization. We don't even have to go to that. It can just be a study of an infectious disease. And the study,
by the way, funded by U.S. taxpayer dollars. Reading into this.
Yeah, I think most everything can trace its way back somehow to U.S. taxpayer dollars. It's thrown all over the world. But I mean, that is a distinct possibility. And what makes me think that it's not intentional is that with an infectious disease or a weaponization of an infectious disease, part of that is that it's created to burn out so that it doesn't come back to the country that released it. So you want to target a specific city, a specific geographic location. So instead of coming over and bombing it, just obliterating it and having to rebuild it, an infectious disease goes through, kills everybody or kills however many that it's designed to, but doesn't escape those borders and come back to the country and kill that country off. So that's what makes me think that, hey, this wasn't intentional. And plus that there have been many instances where infectious diseases have escaped laboratories and it has been suppressed by those governments. So that's all a part of it. But point being, I hope we learn from it.
But do you see escalation between the U.S. and China leading to something like war? I mean, because there's people speculating on that.
That we were kind of heading. There've been tensions with China for a long time, and if you look at, let's say, the collapse of the Soviet Union, and when we talk about Russia, we talk about China, we started to change our language and discuss them as strategic partners rather than enemy. So they've never changed that language towards us. They've always looked at us as the enemy. We looked at them as strategic partners, and that language was intentional on the part of people, of politicians in the U.S. to do that. But the second and third order effects of that is that we don't look at them as the enemy. We don't red cell things from their perspective and think of things, what could they be doing to us that are nefarious? What are they're thinking? And we always hear, China thinks centuries ahead. Well, we think in terms of elections, 2 years, 4 years. Yeah. Are things going to escalate? I mean, I don't know if it was only because of this, but there have always been tensions there.
Yeah, it certainly doesn't make it any better.
Enemy. So yeah, it doesn't. It adds another dynamic to it, but I don't think it's all of a sudden, oh wow, now let's shift and now it's time to get on a war footing. It's just part of that mosaic and a part of what should be incorporated into our strategic decision making going forward. Just another piece of that as we deal with China, as we deal with an adversary, both on the economic front and militarily.
Bro, I got nothing to add. That's perfect. I feel like old
it's
school.
an interesting time.
Answer.
It really is, though, and I don't think anyone has any easy answers to what's going on. I definitely want people to check out the website, officialjackcarr.com, at Jack Carr on Instagram, at Jack Carr USA, I should say, on Instagram and Twitter, 2 R's in Carr, and then also on the website you got different merchandise you could check out. And yeah, man, what are the plans for the future? Is there going to be a 4th book? And anything you want to leave this audience with? I think there's been plenty of inspiration and also some great insight into your time.
Oh yeah, so yeah, 4th book is in the works right now, and I'll be editing that over the summer and getting that ready for, I think, an April release. So that's on the schedule, and then I'll be consulting on the script. So right now, I did helped on the first pilot episode, and there's 8 to 10 others. So it'll be an 8 to 10 part series on Amazon. So I'm consulting on those scripts, and I'm learning a ton, and they're doing a fantastic job with it. So those are the 2 main ones. And other than that, it's juggling the family, juggling life, juggling those kids, and doing all that just like everybody else. So no, I sincerely appreciate you guys having me on. It's great to talk to you, and I hope we can do it again sometime.
Oh, Jack,
absolutely, man.
Thanks, bro.
We'll do in studio, and Savage Son out now. You know what? I have to ask something. I don't know if Chris says anything else, but since you're a fan of the movie 13 Hours, this is your first time of you guys speaking together. Chris always says that Pablo did a great job playing him in the movie. Now that you've talked to Chris a little bit, do you feel like, do you feel like he did a good job playing the guy?
Well, now I'm going to watch it again, and I'm going to go back, and then I'm going to make my decision. So I'm going to take my breath. I'm going to look around, and then I'll get back to you.
Hey, man. Pablo did he did awesome. I love that man. So I love Pablo. He put a different perspective to me of actors as well. All those guys did. We're all tremendous individuals. Krasinski, Mac, and that being said, I admire them because I admire anybody that gives 110%, and they did, and he did. He did a fantastic job by getting to know me, and we're still friends to this day. He's just a huge monster. I mean, the dude's just huge. He's a fucking just a beast. He's ugly as shit though, and I'm good looking. So yeah, I always say I'm better looking. He's got the body, I don't. So it was a good trade off. No, Pablo, you're not. You're sexy. I'm kidding. But bro, I want to. Only thing I got to say to you again, and I know I'm giving you a lot of kudos by knowing how your family is now, and I did not know that. To me, that says more about you than being a SEAL from deploying, and I know how hard that is as well, and your wife and your family. I admire you, man. I people out there follow Jack because the dude's a tremendous individual, and he's a tremendous person. And he turned the switch off because he doesn't need it right now, but he can always flip that switch back on. But he's back, and he's putting 110% in his family life, and he's got to. And to me, brother, that's what I admire. So congratulations. I wish nothing but the best for you, and keep showing people how to lead them by example by just showing them how good of a father and father you are, and how good you're raising your sons, and how hard that is by the adversity you face. And you can tell in your voice, you're like, I can take this. This is fine. I'm still positive. And so I appreciate it, man. I really do. And I said, all my prayers are to you, and I wish you nothing but the best. And if you ever want to come back on the show, I ramble more than probably anybody you've ever been on an interview with. So just deal with that, but just know you can ramble with me and say whatever the hell you want. But God bless you, man. You're the man. Really well done.
Well, I sincerely appreciate that coming from you. It means a lot. And
Thanks,
yeah, let's do it again. Let's do it again sometime, and hopefully we'll meet up in person and do something fun.
Got you, brother. God bless you, man.
For sure. That was good, man. I really enjoyed having Jack on the show. It's funny because you always have that inner military special operations branch rivalry, and I think you're probably always skeptical if you're going to talk to a Navy SEAL. Is this guy going to be a douche? And obviously you didn't feel that way.
Well, and it's we're going to give each other shit regardless, and I always did, just because they're SEALs. What can I do, man? It's just Rangers and SEALs. You'll find that rivalry with all of us, but when we get right down to it, a douche is a douche. A nice guy's a nice guy. It doesn't matter what branch, and that goes with Rangers too. And obviously, no, dude, by all means not. And
well, you know what? I'll tell you this, right from an outside perspective, I've grown to be friends with guys in pretty much all branches. And when I first became friends with all different guys like yourself, and I heard about the branch rivalry, I was like, this sounds so fucking stupid. Like the SEALs are this, and Army Rangers are this. But I have realized the more that I've met different people, some of those stereotypes are very true. And but there's nothing wrong with it. Like there's guys I've met who are Navy SEALs who think they're the God's gift to Earth or something, but they're still nice guys. So and also I always hear, I don't know if this is a stereotype that from your perspective, but I've always heard it, that like the Green Berets tend to be like the super intelligent guys who are like know several different languages. And when I talk to a guy like Terry Shepard or Derek Gannon, a lot of the Green Berets I know, they're like some of the smartest, like most genius guys I've met. So
there's intelligence on all levels. I think to me, Green Beret, there's some that are dumber than a bag of hammers. It's just, we'll go from a perspective, and we from the perspective from a guy that's been in there and looking on the outside and has worked with all of them. Especially that's the blessing of being a contractor for so long too. I got to work with all the different branches of service because we all get lumped in together. SF guys, they think they're extremely intelligent. they are, but there are some that are, but there are some Rangers that are just brilliant, and they're not.
Oh, for sure.
A lot of SEALs,
just not you, but no.
just not me, as you can tell. My master's
and I'm
degree,
breaking balls, guys.
No, I wasted a lot of money. I get my vocabulary wrong all the time. I'm proving it right now. I'm not a smart individual.
No.
But it is. But we're always going to rib each other. But SF guys, they're the trainers. They're going to train the indigenous forces. Lick the finger. Yeah,
I've heard that.
Yeah. SEALs are more of the stereotypes do fit for the groups, but individuals, SEALs, they are more of the I'm out here in the front, look at me sort of thing. But that is just the group itself. And then the Rangers, Rangers are we're just angry individuals that just complain all the time. That's just. But then when you get us all together, no, it's not that way at all. It's just the individuals. It's just how the individual is, and
Yeah, no,
yeah.
it's like anything else, man. I think stereotypes are stereotypes, but you should always treat everyone as an individual, and that goes beyond the military. I mean, it goes to race, religion, all of that. I think
Yeah.
always treat the person as an individual. Don't go into there with preconceived notions. I can just tell you from my background, man, being in New York, I've met people of every different background, and you can't go out there and treat someone based on to me, this is my perspective. If they're a Muslim, if they're a Christian, I've met people of all different backgrounds that are amazing people and people that are dirtbags. And,
Yeah.
and it all goes back to just who they are and their principles that they truly live by. And I'm way more interested, kind of as you said with Jack, in how someone treats their family, how someone, lives their life than the skin color they are or what branch they served in.
But and talking to Jack here, that is overcoming adversity. I mean, it's difficult enough having young kids, but having young kids with a special needs child too, and growing up and like that, and then him growing up, but then also the family having to deal with that, and him coming back from deployments, which I know when you get back from a deployment, granted in the military you have some decompression, but in the special operations community, they don't give you they don't give you as much, because I really don't, they're like, well, you just really don't need all that decompression. That's why you go through all that damn difficult training to begin with. You should already be able to handle the situation, get back home. But coming back home, and then you really have to stay on your A game, because you have to give your son a ton of attention, special needs son. And then also, like you said, you got to balance it too, because your focus can't be just on your son that needs the most help, or your daughter, whoever it is, because now you're not giving the attention that you're also just your other children need. They got to have it. So I wish I had, and I'm really, which is odd. I don't have, I'm having a hard time talking about it, because I don't know how to, I really just don't know how to relate to it, because I've
But
never
yeah,
been that
it's
way.
nothing either of us have experienced at all.
But I admire
Yeah,
him
and
immensely,
also
and his
even
wife.
and to be honest, the spectrum of special needs is an extremely wide spectrum. So I've met people that I've friends with, who are special needs, and they have certain little things here and there that you're going to notice, but it seems like his son is way high on that spectrum of special needs. It's not just someone who has trouble articulating something. He needs someone, as Jack just said, there with him every second of the day.
Right, and that makes him more a warrior than him going overseas and enemies. And Ramadi in 2005, I was a contractor. I was with Blackwater in 2005 in Baghdad, and Ramadi was rough. There were IEDs, and that was when they were starting to figure out what EFPs was. Those are the oh man, explosively forced projectile platter charges. Basically, you put a copper piece over the explosive, so when it explodes, it turns into molten lava, and it will puncture. That's when they started to figure out how to puncture armor. And it's so hot it goes through armor, and then once it goes through the armor, it cools, and it turns back into that steel projectile. They were crushing us with those, and not me personally. I never got hit with a platter charge. I'm not going to say I did, or a EFP, but there were guys that were, and so armor wasn't helping, and Ramadi was the hotbed for that at the time. So to him, for me to say, yeah, he's a warrior. He did awesome. He served in an area where it was probably one of the worst areas in the world at that point in time, if not the worst, in the Anbar province. But coming home then and being a father to his child, and having to deal with that mentally and emotionally after you're trying to come down from deployment, to me that makes him more of a warrior than going overseas any of those deployments did. And I admire that, because I had a hard time enough as it was just coming back. And I had one child. He was, Iraq and Afghanistan. Then I have my daughter and my son. But I remember coming back from Baghdad after a year of being in Baghdad, and I'll tell the story. My wife's my father-in-law was passing away, and he didn't want to go stay in a hospice. He wanted to spend his moments here at the house with his daughter, with Tanya, because they were very close. And it was hard for me. I was so, when I come back, I was so out of it. I didn't want to, I didn't want to be around a problem when I came home, which is what I felt it was. I was completely insensitive, and I didn't know how to handle it. And it was one of my first deployments. So I was so awful, mean, because I was like, God, why is he here? Go put him in a care home. So I don't want him here. I don't want to deal with death. I'm dealing with death for a year. That was my mistake. I learned from it, and I was a terrible person because of it. But that's what I'm saying. Jack coming back after all that, seeing all that death, coming back and having to deal with adversity again. When you come home from a deployment, you don't deal with adversity. You want to decompress. But him being able to handle it and still be a good father, that's amazing to me, because I wasn't able to do that with when I had adversity coming back home. And I honestly I stayed home for 30 days. I went back out the door because like, fuck this, I'm not staying here. I'm out. And I left because I was like, if I'm going to deal with adversity, at least I'm going to go overseas and do my job and get. So, bro, that's why it's amazing to me, and I think that's why you found me a little bit just in awe a bit, because I've been there. Not, it's different circumstances, but I've been there where you come home and you still have to deal with adversity at home when you've been gone overseas. And during that 2003, 4, 5, Iraq was a busy ass place. It was just a lot of carnage going on. Coming back home and not being able to decompress, man, it's amazing to me. And he's still with his wife, so obviously he handled it well, because if they didn't, they would have been divorced. They would have, which me and my wife actually ended up. I think that was part where we separated, then divorced because of that, and then of course we reconciled because I finally got my shit together. But it's just amazing. So I know I'm going in that spiel, but Jack, I know,
No.
and his
People
wife's
I think
listening
like to
out
hear
there.
it, man.
Oh,
Yeah.
I really do. And no guys also, when you're coming home and listen to those stories, Jack handled it the right way. I didn't learn from my mistakes and learn from Jack of how he handled it, and realize that your family is the most important. And I love that he said the switch. I flipped the switch. I flipped the switch off.
You
I
guys
gave that
actually
up.
seem the same in that aspect, because you've talked about, that at a certain point you burnt out of doing deployments, of doing contracting, and you said, this is what
You're
I'm
done.
devoted to now. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of guys still have like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. They
Yep.
aren't
Yep.
sure if they want to transition to doing something else. They kind of want to be back. Even, our friend like Drew Dwyer, rest in peace.
Yeah.
I think at the end there, he was like, he wasn't sure what he wanted to do. And I think he was kind of leaning in that direction of going on deployments again, like so many other guys that we know.
You're right,
And
brother. Yeah.
I think it's tough for some people. And both of you seem to decisively have that idea of, all right, this is the next chapter. For him, it was writing fiction books, and for you, doing public speaking, doing
Speaking and
acting.
teaching. Yeah, teaching. And you have to. That's why guys that have the most problems, that can never, and you see they live all their lives and they still can never handle that of leaving the lifestyle, the deployment lifestyle. That's what it is. That you have to make a decision. For you guys out there, if you've done enough, and I've said it before, I think we even said it on one of the first podcasts or one of the second ones where we talked about Drew. It's, dude, guys that have been going down range, guys have been doing stuff, men and women, because there's women deploying all the time too now, and sometimes they're getting into it. They're getting into just as much combat as men. But there comes a time where you've got to say, all right, I'm done. And if you can't say that I'm done, well, then you got to say, well, okay, I'm going to continue to deploy. And if my marriage falls apart, if my wife doesn't want to, that's part of the deal you're going to have to deal with. You can't have it all, guys. There's these human beings, free will. That your partner, you can't have it all. If
No, it's true. And actually, to go back to one of our episodes, the one guy we had on who decisively has said, I am not going to go back to any other lifestyle, is Dale Comstock. Dale said on the show that he loves the life he lives and all that, but it's a fact that Dale's children and his ex-wife are in the U.S. while he's in another country. So you're spot on.
But he's happy because he made that decision. And it's not a
but
decision.
There's sacrifice to that.
But there's sacrifice.
He's not
Exactly.
With kids like you are.
Exactly. And that's where you have to, and the sacrifice on my end and Jackson, even though we don't see it that way because we're happy where we're at. I love being home, is that I don't get to go deploy anymore. Well, I'm okay with that. And, that's where Dale is. Dale, I can't speak for Dale, but I'm sure he's okay with what not seeing us. And that's not derogatory. He's just accepted, okay, this is what I have to accept if I want to continue to deploy and work. But you hit it nail right on the head. The people have the most problems. And I've never said it this way, and I don't know why I haven't. I'm going to from here on out. Thanks for saying that. Is that when you have 1 foot in one side, 1 foot in the other.
Yeah.
You can't. You have to make a decision. Get home and be a family man, and you're right. Close that chapter and start a new one, or stay in another chapter and continue to write it. But realize that most likely, and I'm not saying never, in all cases, most likely you're not going to have a family life, and you're not going to be able to see your kids. And that's one of I've always said, and you see all the interviews. I said I've never regretted anything in my life. I never have. I'll tell you one thing: as I get older now, and I see my son Christian, 15 years old, and see him continue to grow, I do have a regret. I regret and seeing and being able to spend time now with my 4-year-old, how much fun that is, and I love seeing him grow up. I do regret not being able and being home with my son and watching him grow up, my 15-year-old, because I didn't enjoy when he was younger years because I was never home. Not that
But
it's
you know what I
affected our
think that goes
relationships.
to is I think for people into spirituality like both of us, God has made us, all of us, very
Yeah,
stubborn people, and we need to like go through hell to realize
yeah,
what
yeah,
our mistakes. And had you have not gone through that, it's safe to say you wouldn't have valued the time with your youngest
yeah.
kid.
You're right.
You wouldn't have learned any other way because we're stubborn. All of us are.
We are. I got to stick my hand on the stove to burn the shit out of it just to
Yeah.
learn that the stove is hot. But and
And I'm
that
the
was
same way. I have plenty of experiences that I've never talked about on here, but I know exactly where you're coming, but with
that's
just personal growth, just fucking up and making the same mistakes again and again. And even I've said with this whole COVID-19 thing, especially in New York, it got me completely back to bad habits I had, and waking up super late and not being motivated, and just fucking around, man. And I'm getting back actually right now to my old self. So
and that's awesome.
and
You're learning.
adapt.
That's all.
Yeah, but no, it happens to, I think, all of us, and I think that's why. Actually, I think that's why podcasts are so appealing to so many people right now, because we get into this type of stuff, and you watch the news, you watch a lot of other stuff, everything is perfect, and yeah, and not at this point, but you know what I mean. You feel you're stacking yourself up to people like on Instagram, and it's the
Yeah,
highlight
yeah,
reel of their life. And the truth is, everybody goes through different things, whether you're a military veteran or just or if you're someone who works at Walmart and had a bad day or something. We all go through different things that manifest in different ways, and yeah, adapting and overcoming.
and that you got to learn from it. And I'm glad you said that, dude. And you went through the bad habits. Now you're realizing, well, guess what? I gotta be self motivating now. I don't have to be anywhere. So to get my workout in or to get I've got to be able to get up and say, you know what? I really don't have to work out because nobody's forcing me to. I don't have to go into the office because nobody's forcing me to. So guess now I got to force my own self to get out there and go work out or go be proactive or productive. And military guys are great at that. I am. I mean, I got 11 hours of sleep. I got it last night, but I ran 5 miles of hills yesterday. I worked out for 2 hours. I did work on my computer that I need to do. I'm back to insurance adjusting, so I'm reading the claims manual so I can, because when that starts, I need to know I got to remember all that stuff. So, but I'm doing that on my own. Nobody's telling me to do that. Which, yeah, this is a perfect opportunity for people to become self-starters and not have to feel like you have to do it because somebody's telling you to do it, but you're doing it because you want to better yourself and because nobody else is telling you to do it. And if I don't, I'm just going to go down that slippery slope and turn into a big lop of shit like the guy at the end of Dodgeball, like Ben Stiller's character at the end of Dodgeball, where he's lost and he turns into just his life goes to shit. And he turns into this blob that's sitting there eating.
I remember that. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's true. I've been actually the past couple of weeks more busy than ever, man. I'm doing voiceover for actually a
awesome.
podcast series that
Awesome.
maybe I'll be able to show you guys. It's different stories about survival. It's pretty cool, actually. Like I read one about a guy in Canada who did like outdoor exploration stuff, was trapped in the wilderness with his dog for several days, and as crazy as it is, had to eat his dog in order to survive. And
Wow.
it's the only reason he survived. And when when he was discovered, he was saying, "I miss my dog. Want to get another dog." And some animal rights activists were giving him shit for it, but he did it 100% to survive. It wasn't something that he did as a cruelty thing. He treated his dog like anybody else, like a member of the family. So I've been reading that type of stuff for this upcoming series, and as you know, stuff that I don't even need to get into, but similar to you, working on some other things that I may be doing in the future. and, trying to get the workouts in, now doing 2 podcasts a week, reaching out to different sponsors and all that, and trying to get excitement for this stuff. So yeah, I'm as busy as ever, and it feels good. I'm looking forward to being back with friends doing normal things again, but you can't think about it too much because it goes back to that whole thing. We have no control over it, so why stress out over it?
Bro, and that's what everybody should be doing. And Jack, another thing, even though we say it in different ways, Ted said it, and I always call it maintaining that initiative. You had, of course, who was our guest before that? Gosh, Jim West said it before that. It's he said the same thing. So, and I always equate it to that car analogy. You have that foot on that gas pedal and you're revving the shit out of that engine. So once the light turns green, you're off and running. Well, that's what Jack's doing too. He's doing the same thing. He's being proactive. He's getting prepared for when he can get out there and do the book signings. He's doing what he can right now, but he's already ready. So when the light turns green, he doesn't have to say, okay, what do I have to do now? What do I need to do to get this going? It's like, it's already in place. He's just waiting for the word to go. He's in that horse in that starting gate, waiting for the gate to drop so he can take off running. And he's not only overcoming the adversity, he's preparing to excel when the adversity finally ends. And it will. I don't know when it's, but it will. And he's going to take off. And that is the key to being successful to me, and for anybody to be successful. Don't wait till it ends and figure out, okay, what do I do now? Already have that plan in place. So when whatever the adversity ends, and it does end, you're just off and running, and you got that head start. And he said it too. Every one of our guests, everyone has said something similar to that. But that's why we have them on, and that's why all of them, even though they've been through adversity, they've all been successful in their own genre, in their own area. And I'm not talking about money. I don't think money is a measure of success. It can come with it, but just being happy and having that motivation to move on and being self-motivated, that is successful to me. And every one of our guests has been that way, brother. I can't think of one that isn't. I'll be honest with you. I can't. So, man, tremendous, man. I still admire all of our guests, and I didn't say enough about Jim West either. Same kind of guy. So much adversity, and he just is plowing through that, and he's just kicking ass. And that dude is, again, for all of us in the community, he's a mentor, guy you want to look up to. So
yeah, check out those old podcasts if you haven't. This has been a lot of fun, man. And you know what? It actually may be a time that more and more people are checking out books and reading fiction books.
Yeah.
Because they have the time to, and who wants to stare at the TV all day? It's probably not the best. I know it's not the best thing to do. So, yeah, with that, man, once again, check out Everyday Grind Coffee. Use coupon code Battleline for 20% off. Also, we've got shirts now. Tonto-apparel.myshopify.com. I love the shirts that we've done with the Next Level
They're
Apparel
awesome.
for Battleline podcast. Yeah, Aaron Lauder did a great job designing those. Shout out to him. So I'll have a link in the bio, tonto-apparel.myshopify.com. Getting back in studio, and when I'm back in studio, I'll try to have like all in studio guests for a while, because I do miss that like real life interaction, seeing someone the way that we were with Andrei Arlovsky, and I've been with so many other people. Yeah, and you know what? Last thing, you've been saying 14th Hour is doing a lot of work with what's going on right now.
Just go into the Google, put in the search bar 14th Hour Foundation. If veterans or first responders are having problems paying their bills, it's just get on the website there and go ahead and apply for a grant, and just prove your time in service, prove that you didn't have a dishonorable discharge. But if you did, I'll still hear you out, because I know guys make mistakes. I know there are things that happen, but as long as you weren't criminally charged with anything, same as first responders, and I think that goes with most foundations. I got to put that out there just so you know. But go ahead and apply for a grant, and we've got money in there to help you out. And
nice.
When we run out of money, well, then we run out of money. But we always get good people good people out there donating. And I've had that foundation now for 3 years. I don't promote it a ton. It's tough. That's a double-edged sword.
Well,
As
it's
a found,
small. It's a smaller organization.
it is. It is. And it's another thing where I want people to find out about it word of mouth, to know that we're helping you. And we've helped a total amount of 50 grand in the last 2 years that we've been able to give out to veterans and first responders, and also other foundations. I'll donate to another foundation too if they need money to help out. And we've done 50, actually it's even more than that, 50, $60,000, and to been able to give out to help people and other foundations. And I don't pay, I don't take a dime. I don't take, me and my wife runs the majority of it now. Tanya does an awesome job. But yeah, we don't take a dime from it. I don't think foundations should be taking money
No.
for it. Now
I could tell you, I've heard all different things, man, from all those organizations. So yeah, no, I know from experience. Mark Slaughter, who did the outro music on this, he wanted that money when he put that out, Never Given Up, to go to military charities, and he said, Wounded Warrior Foundation and the bigger organizations were giving him the runaround, and so I've heard the stories.
And you just have to do your due diligence. Some out there have been doing real well, but most do take a huge chunk.
And I should say it's Wounded Warrior Project, right? I'm mixing
Wounded Warrior,
yeah,
Wounded War, yeah. Wounded. There's so many dang Shadow Wars, Wounded Warrior, Shadow Warrior Project, all that, but Wounded Warrior Project, the big one. But they do give a ton of money out too. But yeah, they've
but
been
there's people making money. Yeah.
Oh, a lot, 6 figures, dude, and they're doing 6-figure. That was the big thing in the news. Remember that, where Wounded Warrior Project was? That's when people started to find out that maybe they weren't on the up and up, as they did a huge party in Las Vegas where it was a 6-figure party fundraiser where they spent over hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then they started finding out money was going into guys' pockets, and then guys were fired. You can search all that, guys. But that's where I started also to pay attention a little bit better too, and that's also when I started my foundation. It's like, well, screw this. I'm not, if this is how it is, something needs to be out there where it's actually a foundation where money's going to guys and nothing's going into anybody's pockets. And that's why we did it. So, yeah, but please, 14th Hour Foundation, guys, if you're having issues paying your bills, we also help with tuition. We also help with other foundations if you need money to help people that are looking for money from your foundations. And actually, that's so easy. It's just to enter transfers. Like, hey, your foundation, give me your 501c3, got it, and I'll just send you money to your foundation, and you push it out there. And we do that with Regroup, which is done by Antonio Ruiz, who runs Regroup Foundation. He's a former Ranger as well. And then we also do it with Tiggs Foundation, Beyond the Battlefield, where we work very close with Margaret Teague, and my wife and Margaret work very close together, and we do help each other out on our
which I think they changed the name of, if I remember, when Tig was on, right?
What they changed it to now?
Didn't they? Or is that the changed name? Because I just remember we were talking about this when he was on with us.
I still believe it's Beyond the Battlefield.
You're probably right. I just remember it was. Let me see, because now I'm curious, because I know that we talked about it with.
Do you have your computer there? Can you search it out?
Yeah, I'm on the computer here. But so I think is the Teagan Foundation, the TiganFoundation.org.
Okay, so yeah, I think it's still called Beyond the Battlefield, but they had to change the.
I see on here it says Beyond the Battlefield, the Tigan Foundation.
But they just had, because something. That's right. Their the website domain, somebody had taken that domain, so they had to change the domain name. But either way, Brad, that's another great foundation if you're looking for money to help out. And Margaret runs it well. Margaret is a tremendous individual and tremendous wife. Believe me, she has to put up with Tig's ass. She is a tremendous wife.
Yeah, if you're able to help out and it's a worthy cause, then that's what we'll do. And these are crazy times for the country, so it's great that people like you are doing things.
I appreciate it. Thank my wife. She really takes a lot of pride in that, and she really keeps me honest, keeps me busy on that foundation. So if you need it, go ahead, guys. If not, and you feel like you can donate a little bit to it, go ahead. Every little bit helps, and we're all just grassroots. Yeah, we do grassroots fundraising. Eddie Ranji out of Iron Gal Firearms did do a huge. That was fun. He did do a huge. He donated a old truck that we actually went on and auctioned it off on there's a big auction show on NBC Sports. It's always on. Why can't I remember it? One of the big
I don't know.
auctions. Yeah, I know. It's a huge car auction. It's always on TV, and he donated a truck, and we were able to auction it off. This was last right almost a year ago, and raised about 20 grand with that truck. And Eddie Ranji out at Iron Guy Farms is a huge donator for 14th Hour Foundation. He's always put money, and he's probably one of our biggest biggest donators that we have, and he keeps it going. And we just do what we can, man. We do what we can.
100%. We have some great guests lined up for the rest of the month. And keep checking us out. If you have any questions for the podcast, email battlelinepodcast@gmail.com. We get to what we can. I'm looking forward to hopefully being back in studio soon. We really should be. I mean, I'll be honest, like, you've been to that studio. It's not a whole lot of people in there. Yeah, they clean everything super nicely. So I would hope that will be in, whatever phase of opening is next. And man, this was great. Definitely excited for what's to come the rest of the month. I'm enjoying 2 shows a week with you.
Yeah, well, you get the setup. Just tell me who's on next. I never know until the week before. But thanks to Jack again for being on, and thanks to Uncle Ted as well earlier in the week. And before that, Jim. I mean, we've had some great guests, and I hope people are listening to us, and appreciate our sponsors out there too. All of us, especially we had Everyday Grind Coffee, and Josh is outstanding, and guys. Coffee it up right now, man. They need it, and make some sweet coffee for y'all. And got Battleline course. I believe we got one coming up in Chicago. It's coming up at the end of May if Illinois lets us have it. And Battleline Tactical. So check out Battleline Tactical. We actually got a ton of pictures up, and you'll also see some of the patches that Patch Ops makes for Battleline Tactical. As far as they make our 14th Hour patch, the Battleline Tactical patch, and the Battleline Combatives patch. And then go on their website as well and check them out too.
That's all for this episode of Battleline Podcast. But we have new shows up every Monday and Friday, so make sure you're subscribed. And keep up with the show 24/7 on Facebook and Instagram at Battleline Podcast. Also on Twitter at Battleline Pod. As always, never quit.